Samsa here at Ngosi Talk Shows, Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. So with me today, I'm with Carol Ann Cooper and Shireen Lovegood. How are you ladies?
Very
We're
well,
good, thank you,
thank you.
Lobster. And you?
Yeah,
I am very well, thank you.
Good.
good.
Very, very well. So the topic today is the emotional agility, the underrated superpower that saves relationship. I love the topic, Carol Ann, by the way. So, um, emotionally intelligent has long been praised as the key factor in personal and professional success and in relationship as well. It involves recognizing, understanding, and managing emotions, both our own, those and others, those of others. However, emotional agility goes beyond simple being aware of emotions. Coined by psychologist Suzanne David, emotionally agility refers to the ability to navigate your emotions effectively rather than being controlled by them. So, Carol Ann, you chose the topic. Would you like to explain the topic to our audience, please?
Yeah, explain the topic or explain because you've explained quite well. There's a great
So,
introduction
would
there.
you like to
Why
explain
I
the
why I picked it.
motivation behind it? So,
Yeah. Well, it came from a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about a superpower with regards to relationships, and reflective listening was
mm,
regarded as a superpower. And as we were chatting, it sort of commented, well, I wonder what other superpowers there might be we don't know about. So I just put that into chat and asked for what other superpowers there are um, that we don't know about, this sort of in relationships. And it came up with six. So I'm thinking, great, there's six topics we can talk about. And this was one of them. And, talking about emotional agility. And I just thought, wow, I've never actually heard that phrase before. You
mm,
hear about, as you say, emotional intelligence, which is, yeah, understanding your emotions and, empathizing with your partner and communication. But emotional agility, I like that because that's about
mm,
Movement.
flexibility and movement.
mm,
And yeah, so I thought, let's look at that one. So I think it'd be great to explore these
Mm.
superpowers because, they are underrated. They're not perhaps known. And maybe if we started raising that awareness of them and what they are, because it's just that subtle shift and depth of understanding and bringing movement in there that can probably support someone in not just saving
mm.
their relationship, it's empowering it to grow and thrive and not just survive. So that's where it came from. So, so yeah, I just and exploring it and looking at it, I'm thinking, oh yeah,
Mm.
nice subtle shifts. Shireen, what was your thoughts when you saw it?
Yeah, I mean it's such, when we talk about superpowers, you're talking about what have we got that makes us special or gives us a something with a tool, a massive tool with which helps us to move forward in a particular way. So, we always say, what's your special superpower? What's your special skill? We're really looking at what are the things that allow you to move into a space of thriving, right? Not just a state of surviving, it's a state of thriving. And what does that mean? We often talk about here about whoever has the greatest amount of cognitive flexibility or agility is the one that rules the system, right? So
Mm.
what we're meaning in that situation is the one that knows how to pivot and switch and move around and is comfortable with the switch. That gives you the greatest opportunity to be able to see opportunities, right? To move out of
Mm.
challenges and into flow. Um, so the idea of emotional variability, when I looked at that, I started to just go, oh, I thought, oh, well, let me just kind of delve into that a little bit. And many of us may not really think about the idea of a heart rate variability. And I'm going to heart rate variability because emotions are
Mm.
how the body or the soul talks to us, right? It's all going to affect our heart. And one of the things which was really sort of was going into my mind was thinking about Canahan's stuff, which is your fast and slow systems. So, do we have a fast and slow system? And this fast and slow system that we have in our body is the way we process emotions. And if we don't have a capacity to be able to move within our emotions, we then don't have the capacity to be able to have that to be flexible enough in the system. So we can't regulate fast enough. And I suppose when I'm thinking about the emotional variability capacity, I'm thinking, is it our capacity to hold and also to dispel, to let go of? So it's that kind of flexibility that we have, almost like a an elastic. We can stretch our emotion to a kind of a limit, and we can have a recoil back to where it is, where we can be in our sort of not safe zone, but our optimum zone, I'll say, rather than a safe zone, because an optimum zone has a safety component to it, but it also has an expansive component at the same time. So it's almost like that residing tension that sits within something that gives us this ability to be able to stretch it and also bring it back to, and you have that flexibility. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking when I was thinking about emotional flexibility and agility. It's that capacity to be able to swing, but still be in the safety constraints. So we can move, if we have to think about sort of levels on a graph, we be able to move in and out this kind of graph where you have a top note over here and a bottom note over here, where you go to the extreme and you're out of control, or where you're down here and you're absolutely flat. Those kinds of things are not really good for us, right? But you want to be able to move within this gradient so that you have this ability to self-regulate in some way. So that was what was really running around in my mind, and kind of also the idea of how, understanding that our brain works, our thinking brain works a lot slower than our emotional brain. And for me, the idea of emotional agility is having the ability to bring thought into the emotion so that they're both informing each other simultaneously. So for me, that's probably where I'm going to go with that. I feel that's what it's really about, because we have a signaling system, which is our emotional system, and a syntax system, which is our brain system. And one is much, much slower than the other, but emotions are very fast. So I think with emotional agility is how do we manage that time difference between having stuff come down from the top part of our brain, and also how do we inform what's going on, the sensory system, informing the brain so it can process.
Nomsa.
Yeah, I actually agree with you guys because you don't hear people talking about emotional agility. They normally talk about emotional intelligence. That's what you hear a lot. So I think for me, I would say emotional agility matters more than emotional intelligence, like what you both said. And because it gives you, it's like awareness versus adaptability.
Mm.
So it also teaches individual to recognize their emotions and regulate them appropriately, like you said, Shireen. And that is emotional intelligence, but then emotional agility, then it comes in, and then it helps you to emphasize your flexibility instead of controlling your emotions, which is encourage you to acknowledge them and have an understanding of their process at this their purpose at the same time. So I think that's my understanding of it.
Mm. Yeah, it is. It's just that flexibility. And I like that there's that, your fast and slow systems in the body, and it's being able to move from one to the other. And this is where, okay, emotional intelligence, being able to understand what's there, what's happening. But emotional agility just helps you to take that step back and be the observer of it rather than being taken up in it. And so by becoming the observer of it, you can give it a name, you can describe it, and you're not, it's not overtaking you. And yeah, there is the different parts of the brain, because you say you've got that emotional center and you just feel it. And it's like, how quickly do you shut down into that brainstem where the primitive reflexes just take over and control you, or you can then, or you feel the emotion and you move up into that higher cortex where you've got the clear, rational thought. And that's something I've worked with for years and found that difference. And this is where actually Brain Gym has actually helped a lot, because it does help you to just feel those emotions. And then instead of shutting down, you can move up into that higher cortex and you've got that clear, rational thought, and you can then respond rather than react.
Exactly.
And it's just building that. I hate using the word muscle. I
But
know
it is.
people refer to it. I just like, because it's not, it's the connections. It's those synapses. And when you build those pathways in the brain, and actually those primitive reflexes are integrated and they become fully integrated, they don't have that same pull. You've created the neuronal pathways in the brain that actually you feel the emotion, and it's more a path to going upwards than it is coming down. And it's like someone described it to me. You've got, say, you're in a field and you've got a well-trodden path, and there's another path there that's not quite so well trodden, but which one do you go along? And you decide to go down. It's creating a new path, and the more you go down it, the more it becomes trodden, and the more the old path just gets overgrown. And that's very much the same with the brain. If you build those new pathways, the more you use them, the stronger they get. And but it doesn't mean, sometimes you get pulled down those old ones, and it's being able to recognize it. And this is where the emotional agility comes in. Can you recognize it and go, oh, and then go down the new path? And so there, I love what Viktor Frankl says, actually. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And I think that's what actually saved him, was having that mindset and thinking that way, and realizing that, yeah, it's in that moment that, and it is literally just that a split second. You just go, oh, and pause. Go, okay, what's happening here? And you can then get to choose how you're going to respond. And that's what emotional agility is about. And so it's really how can that help save a relationship, I wonder. And that's something, to explore here as well, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. I loved what you said there, Carol Ann, which is really is kind of the difference in nuance between emotional intelligence and emotional agility. I love the idea of the nuance, because we're now looking, when you look at aptitude tests now, we're looking more at agility. We're choosing to look at more agility rather than the concrete kind of stuff that people know. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to know that we've got these neural connections that are made that will allow for people to pivot, to switch, and particularly when we're talking about emotional agility, we're thinking about the capacity that person has. So for me, that's where I think about it. The agility part is the capacity to pivot, the capacity to choose. And as you said, Viktor Frankl sort of said between the stimulus and response. we want to, the stimulus is an unconscious response. We have a stimulus, it is outside our awareness. We will not understand and have it. We won't know it because we have this great big movement in our brain called an N400, which is one of the orientation things in our brain that says, hey, pay attention. So it takes a little bit of time and you have a bit of delay. But what happens is if you can delay enough, so you, instead of reacting as we in normal situations, we have a reflex action, which is an action without our awareness. And often, if I hit my thing like this, I might get a little bounce. That's a reflex. It doesn't go to the brain. But what we want to do, that stimulus and response, is we want to make that gap big enough that, as you were saying, that we can get the neural connections to flow to the brain, so that by then we can bring the brain back online, so that we can then look and change and make different decisions, right? Because it is all about how we make decisions. Emotional agility helps us to, how to make the best decisions that we can in that situation. It gives us access to all the other intelligences that we have. It gives us access to more cognitive intelligence. It gives us access to more heart-led intelligence. It gives us more access to our spiritual intelligence. It gives us access to a lot of other kinds, like our visual, our sensory intelligences. So we want to think about it that if something that gives us more capacity to be able to hold and use all those other systems, this is where the freedom is, isn't it? This is where the freedom is. You said, Carol Ann, about relationships. Well, the less reactive we are and the more proactive we are and the more creative we are, the better chances that we're going to have a successful relationship, right? Because there are always going to be challenges. We've all lived in a world. There's not one human being in this world that doesn't have saboteurs. We all have an inner judge. We all have an inner judge, and we like to judge others and we like to judge ourselves. And we often worse on ourselves, because if we're self-righteous, then we give ourselves a harder time. But the problem is that causes a huge amount of stress and a huge amount of emotional inflexibility, right? And so that means that we respond behaviorally to those saboteurs. So we might withdraw, we might shout out and bite someone, we might hit them, we might do coercive control, which is really about secretly setting someone up in a terrible way. So you've got a lot of over rescuing, over giving, these kind of behaviors that all lead to dysfunctional relationships, right? Because it then becomes very centered on self and not enough on self and other as a collective, as a joint venture in life. So yes, so the greater the emotional flexibility for me is being able to open that space enough that we can hold that feeling, hold that emotion, that capacity to hold it, and then choose.
Yeah.
Namsa.
I love it. I love what you've just said, Shireen, and Carol Ann. That is all about making a decision without going into judgy place. And I think also most Carol Ann, the topic that you have chosen, you don't hear really people talking about, even when they talk about the fixed mindset versus growth mindset, emotions, they always use emotional intelligence. They don't use emotional agility. So we're so grateful that you brought these words to us. Next time when I'm like communicating in my relationship, I'm just gonna stop and think without judging and say, remember that topic. Think about the emotional agility that can contributed to growth mindset instead of me viewing emotions as a temporal, manageable experiences rather than obstacles. So I think I need to do that. And Shireen, you mentioned that the more we think about agility, the more we get creative about things, the more we grow as well. And you mentioned that we all have inner judge. I used to have inner judge, but because I'm cleansing myself, I don't do inner judging people anymore. I let people go into their place, let me know what they're actually thinking. But before, I used to look at people and say, and I'll be like judging and judging. Before they finish the conversation, I think I know what they're saying, but I don't. So now I just have to wait for that person to actually let me know what is going on without me judging them. So I think agility, it helps every man and every woman in a relationship. It saves their relationship by using your critical thinking. Like when someone is having a conversation with you, instead of going to analyze everything, you just stay focused in that place where what is this person telling me? What is their expectations? Instead of assuming, and then you have to ask them, because you never know until you ask someone. You'd be like, okay, how do I respond in this situation, instead of like judging that person. So thank you, Carol Ann, for the
You're welcome. And it's great to actually understand it. And I love that word nuance, Shireen, nuances, those subtle differences in our, there's such a richness in our language. And I'm really becoming more appreciative of it, in being able to, being willing to sort of open up and look into it and explore. And I think this is where it is, that opening up and being willing to explore and being curious about, well, how else could we be in this relationship? Actually become curious as to, well, what is it that triggers me? Because, often it is a trigger that it just literally happens split second. And then you can get into this cycle where you have your trigger, your reaction, your regret, and then of course you repeat the cycle. And so having emotional agility helps you just to pause and reflect and just reframe it, sorry, and choose a different response. Actually, maybe understand what the trigger is and reframe it, and actually clear it, such that actually that trigger, you become, it's then you notice it. And then you've got that choice because you've noticed it. It's that awareness that you have. And so just noticing where you're stuck in old arguments, that constant cycle that you repeat, there's resentment or there's other things that are happening, and they just constantly keep coming back. And those are the triggers. It's like, okay, so reframe that resentment, or heal that resentment. Where does it come from? Do some inner work on that, because then if that resentment is lessened or actually let go of, it's not there to actually act as a trigger anymore. And that's where that emotional agility comes in, because you've okay, the emotional intelligence, you've understood it, you've seen it, but the emotional agility is you've done something about it to help you to go, oh, okay, oh, there it is again, and stop, pause, breathe, give it that little bit of space and go, okay, maybe even ask yourself a question, what is happening here? What is the bigger picture that's here? Rather than shutting down and just closing down and reacting. And it gives you something else. It's that getting curious as to, well, okay, well, what is actually going on here at a bigger level, at a deeper level, and being able to then just take action in a more positive way, And it helps you to learn to avoid that trap of emotional rigidity, because that's where, when you're stuck in resentment and defensiveness, that is an emotional rigidity. It's like there's no way you are ever going to stop this. There's no emotional agility in that. So again, where are you being so emotionally rigid that actually would be throttling your relationship? It's closing it down, it's shutting it down. And being able to bring in emotional agility and release that resentment, release that defensiveness, you breathe life into your relationship again, So yeah, I'm really enjoying exploring this.
Yeah, I think I think it's really it's a topic that is so good to go down in nuance. What are the other little superpowers that support emotional agility? These are really key components of that, isn't it? Which you were talking about, slowing down, being able to observe, to be able to step as a watcher, which I really loved that you said there, Caroline, earlier on, which was, because I was thinking about emotional intelligence and then thought, okay, what is it? Well, it's like we're looking at it from the outside and we're kind of almost separated from it.
Yes.
But the emotional agility is the living part of the emotion. For me, I suppose that's what it is. It's the living being part of emotional intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence can be there, put it on a shelf, learn about it, think about it, but you may not actually have it. So it's about the living emotional intelligence, that it's in the being state of it.
Yeah.
And agility means that it's movement. It's not about being in one fixed state, right? And I think that and we've got to bring that into the living state in order for us to shift and change, to utilize it in the way that it needs to be utilized. So yeah, the stopping and taking time to build those neural networks, or to build our capacitance. When I talk about capacitance, I suppose another way to think about it is if you were blowing a balloon and you get to the level where it's going to burst, that means that at that point, the more you blow, you're decreasing the capacitance, right? You're decreasing its capacity to be able to have the membrane to have enough flexibility, because it's now getting rigid as it goes, right? So you want to have something healthy right at the end, so it's got this ability to be able to stretch and relax, and stretch and relax. That's the emotional ability, right? For me, it's about being able to really utilize the whole spectrum of our emotions, and be able to understand them at a really deep level, so that we can know, well, am I disappointed? Am I just sad? Am I this? So we get learning an emotional vocabulary can be really powerful in this, right? Learning to be able to say, when someone says something, you go, no, actually, that's not what I'm really thinking. So you're not assuming, you're just saying, oh, no, that's what I think. Let me just think about that. Am I really this, and this? If you have an emotional language with which to refer to, and there's quite a few you can get online now, where they have these wheels of emotions, and you can really see where they all come from and how they project through. When you have that language within in your landscape or your body, means that you can really get an idea what's really triggering you, what's getting in the way, where's it coming from? Because the moment you identify the emotion, it often takes you straight to the event where it was first formed. Or where it was highly triggered, right? Or the belief was formed, or whatever. And that's when you have the ability to go to that place and explore it from a place of curiosity.
You're muted, Nomsa.
love what you said, Carol, and that you need to be able to open up and be willing to explore when you're stuck in a relationship. And also, Shireen, as well, you said the emotional agility is the movement, not a one fixed mindset. I think most of the people like now, um, when like when I listen to you, Shireen, when you talk about your relationship, it's not a fixed mindset. There's this excitement to be in it. You love being in it. But then when I go and talk to people about their relationship, you see them, they have this image that they portray and you think they are happy. But then when you start talking about admiring their relationship, that's when everything just comes out like, uh, that mindset where they're stuck in, where because when you enter a relationship first, you have to fix your emotions. You got to make sure, Carol, and when you ask her the problem, you expect her to tell you the problem to help you with something else, and then she'll be like, what is in you that is activating is a problem that is activating this problem to be happening in your life. So I've learned that from her. So I think with the emotional agility, before anybody else enters a relationship, so first you have to start with self-awareness and just to check your emotions, whether your emotions they are in the right place. Because if you have been wounded and emotionally, if you are not aware of what's going on around you, if you don't have compassion, because like we have this thing where people go and do things with an agenda, and we were doing like we were praying the other day, and my pastor goes, when you want to go to relationship with finding your husband, your wife, whatever, you go with an agenda. Can we just go to prayer without an agenda? So I was like, what? We go with an agenda? What's agenda is that? And it's like, you know the agenda that you go with. So I was like, actually, that's true. People go with an agenda. But which made me have food for thoughts that I think I need to love without having that agenda in my heart. Like you, Shawina, what you were saying, that we always have inner judge. And I think we always have inner want. Like we have this thing, the entitlement. I am entitled for this. I'm the queen. You need to look after me like this, you need to do this. So I was like, agenda. So I just need to love and receive love back and accept it. Because sometimes you get love emotionally, if you don't understand the emotionally intelligent or emotionally agility, which Carol Annie has brought to us to our awareness, you stay stuck in that mindset. Like today, Carol Ann has brought this topic, and the other day, my pastor was talking about the agenda. You all go to your husband with an agenda. Let's go without an agenda. So I think you're giving us food for thoughts, guys.
And I think,
Really food for thought.
yeah, thank you. And you're right about an agenda. We do often have an agenda, and maybe we're not even aware of it. There's underlying agendas that perhaps you hadn't even realized, and they could be what the triggers are, because something has happened and it's like it doesn't agree with your agenda. So it's like,
And then
oh
it
my
keeps
God, this wasn't supposed to be
happening.
like this, or I wasn't supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And it's recognizing that. Have you
Mm.
got that hidden agenda going on
Yeah.
underneath, which
Yeah.
is, can be another trigger, as we say. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that idea, letting go of those agendas, get to know them, and let them go, because, it isn't healthy to have that agenda, because you're setting
Mm.
yourself up to actually, again, squeeze the life out of that relationship, because again, it creates a rigidity. you can create an intention
Mm.
of how you like things to be, and it's about the beingness. It's not about who, what they do. It's who are you being? Who are you being in that relationship? That's what's really important. And being someone who is open and curious to being flexible.
Mm.
So it's that beingness is being flexible. That's the emotional agility. It's being flexible. It's being open. It's being receptive. It's being in a sharing
Mm.
capacity. And and I like what you're saying about the language, because if you can label your emotions, so actually getting to know them, and
Mm.
part of what you were saying, Nomsa, about knowing them before you get into a relationship. Well, if you haven't and you're in a relationship, then start now, because it's like, when is now the best time to start? In it? Yeah. So get to know your emotions, get
Mm.
to know and be able to label them. And that's really what helped me, because I didn't know my feelings, my emotions. Didn't have words for them. Couldn't even really recognize them. But the more I did the training in brain gym and educational kinesiology, the journey work, NLP,
Mm.
touch for health, and really got in touch with my body, I started finding words that could describe them. And I'm thinking, oh, and I started to be able to distinguish between anger and rage.
Mm.
It was like, my goodness, I hadn't even understood it before, but I could really get that difference. And when you can start to feel and give the language to it, and there is no right or wrong, because actually, if you can give words to it and describe it, then
Mm.
that's how it is for you. Because rage for someone else might not be rage for you, because it's that level of differentiation between anger and rage. But if you can experience the difference and give it the wording, it really helps you to
Mm.
understand and talk about it.
Mm.
And being able to sort of say, instead of just saying, I'm upset,
Mm.
say, I feel hurt, because I value honesty. You put a reason in there, but you can actually say, well, I feel hurt, or I feel sad. It's not just upset, which is quite a blanket term. It's being able to go that bit deeper and explore
Mm.
it. So really being able to name them,
Mm.
it helps you to understand them without letting them control you. You
Yeah.
that start having control over them,
Mm.
and and there's the freedom. So
Mm.
certainly, start labeling them, understand your emotions,
Yeah.
and know that there is much more
Mm.
to our emotional capacity than we realize. And I look in. There was someone introduced the word bliss to me, quite a few years ago, and I'm going, wow.
Wow.
And what's that like? And then it's like, oh, okay, it's not just peace or stillness. There's bliss. It's just got another quality.
Ecstatic piece.
Yeah. It really it,
Mm.
it widens your whole
Yeah.
world,
Mm.
you know,
Mm. Yeah.
and being able to explain that to a partner.
Mm.
Well, this is how it's for me, and what's happening. It helps them to understand,
Yeah.
you know. So definitely vocabulary is everything.
Well, we know words make worlds, and
Yes.
you know, it's the only way that the body actually has the ability, by enunciating words, by saying words, even if we're thinking them, we're actually internally vocalizing in some way, but we're bringing information from our body up so that we can hear it, see it, speak it. And I think that's really important, because most of us, or what happens is, when we're in stress or in any kind of situation, we kind of block the words coming up,
Mm.
right? And we don't allow the right channels for those words so that those words can be truly heard in a particular way. So yes, that was really important. And there was something you said, Caroline, and I'm sorry, it'll come back to me in a minute. That I want to come back to it.
It
But
will.
when we were talking about when Namsa, you were talking about having no agenda, I immediately was transported back to when I was standing. I was at church and I was kneeling, and I was kneeling away, and then I stopped and I thought. I come to church and I pray, but I'm always praying for something. And I remember doing this. I was about in my early 20s, and I remember going, you know what, God, maybe I should just come here and say thank you and praise you. Can I do that? I had never ever thought about that, but on that particular day was the first time I remembered that actually, wow, this was an agenda. I'm coming with an agenda. And I ask all the time, how about I give back in some way? How about I do that? And that was something that was really powerful for me. And so I think that, when we're in a relationship, part of learning is about this, a learning that we all have agendas. And I think we really need to step back and go, okay, how can I serve that person that is with me, right? How do I serve them? That's not being a servant. It's how do I serve in that way that I can be in an act of service, in the act of glorying, if you want to say. I like that word very much. How do I help someone be in glory of themselves? Not that they're a queen and they think that they're a queen and then they behave unqueenly, but that they, with all of that comes responsibility and accountability and all of those things. You can't rule a land without having some accountability to yourself if you want it to be a peaceful, um, blissful population. So this is really what we're talking about. And we are, I truly believe that we all are the seed of God or the goddess, all that is, and therefore we are queens and kings. And as queens and kings, we have to learn how to have this emotional flexibility that we can live in that emotion enough that we can be able to do the things that we need to do to love, to evolve, and to grow. So for me, that's really what I think emotional agility gives us in a relationship. It gives us this ability to be able to hold our unhelpful feelings so that we don't react, hold them in a container enough that we get enough of those, enough information so that we can then choose. So it's kind of like we're in this container. It creates this, the flexibility gives us that container so that we are able to do something different. And that's where the Victor Hugo quote comes in so beautifully.
Viktor Frankl.
Victor Frankl, sorry. Victor
Okay.
Hugo. Victor
Yeah.
Frankl. Yeah. Don't know why I keep calling him Hugo, but Frankl.
Yeah.
There must be a reason I've said Hugo.
Yeah, it's a quote by him somewhere.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, this is really useful. And I mean, when I think of a metaphor of what I think of emotional capacity is I think about the heart. I think about the heart has to beat and contract, beat and contract, beat and contract. And there's something called Frank Starling's law, which means that there's a sufficient elasticity to give an equal rebound, to give a really good, healthy heart flow. So yeah, this is what we want. We want to be able to get to that point of resistance and be able to also contract, be able to release or contract in such a way that we can move forward and propel forward into flow. Yeah, that's what I think emotional agility is. The living emotion.
Mm.
Yeah, I did that on the altar on Sunday as well, Shireen. I went to church and then I went on the altar. Normally, it's me telling God in my problems and stuff. And I think on Sunday I was like, I'm just here to love you. It's like, God,
How
I'm
can I
not
just do
here.
that?
I'm not here to ask. I don't have an agenda today.
Yeah.
So, Carol Annie, you'll be pleased that I have written these words: bless, please, peace, and emotional agility, emotional intelligence. I've written them down, and love without an agenda. So I'm not gonna, since Pastor James put that thought in my head that let's go to God without an agenda. You all go to your husband, your wives, you find a boyfriend or whatever, you step in with an agenda. No agenda today. But then yeah, then it made me think that actually we have this list that we write down and then we say if they are not this, they don't qualify us. But do we really ever ask God to actually give us our true husband and true wives? We never really, we go with an agenda. It just made me laugh. And now, Carol Ann, you're making things worse.
Stirred up, Maya.
You're
Yeah.
stirring things up. I've already have my own food for thought so that I just need to love people without an agenda, and you're putting things on top and saying, no, sir, look at these words as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. This is about just stir it up and bring it out and,
It's
see
amazing
what's there.
how we learn. We're always learning, aren't
Yes.
we?
Yeah. Always
Yeah.
learning. Yeah.
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 We're always being challenged.
Mm. And
Well, that is
we were
part of
talking
the
about,
evolution of ourselves, isn't it? We
yeah.
have to learn. If we're not learning, then we just stay very stuck and we don't move forward.
If you're not living and growing, you're dying. It's, yeah. You're stuck. It's that stagnation,
Mm.
and a stagnant pond is not alive. There's no oxygen in there, is it? It's like, it's just, so yeah. And that you're saying about word not being having access to words when we're shut down
Mm.
in that brainstem, we don't have access to the language centers. So that's why words won't come out.
Mm.
We have to be up here in that higher cortex where the language centers are, for us to be able to find the words, to be able to, and express them.
Mm.
So certainly having that ability to move and feel those emotions and then become the observer of it and give it a word
Mm.
certainly helps that movement. There's a particular brain gym activity that helps you feel emotions, which I've mentioned before, which is hookups. And it's just one where you put your arms out in front of you with thumbs to the floor, overlink, to put one hand over the other so the palms are together, interlink the
Yeah.
fingers, and then just roll the arms under, and then just cross your ankles, cross your feet at your ankles. And that helps you to feel what you're feeling.
Oh.
And eventually it will just go. It can sort of get stronger, and sometimes you sort of just feel it and feel it, but just sit with that and just close your eyes and feel into the emotion and have your tongue at the roof of your mouth. And eventually the emotion will go. It will dissipate.
Mm.
And then the second part is just feet apart and fingertips together. But, don't worry if you forget that bit. Just go into hookups if you're really feeling a strong emotion, because it will help you to feel it and move through until it then just dissipates and you then have clear cognitive thought, and that that one I use a lot. I've used a lot in the past, and when I first learned it, and it really, I keep saying it saved me.
Yeah.
And even when I was teaching and I had a student just completely going off the wall, she was just throwing a tantrum, and I just stood in hookups. And eventually she calmed down and she went, "What are you on? Any normal teacher would be angry by now."
Yeah.
And because I was able to just stay calm, feel what she was feeling, but not react to it.
Mm.
You have that, what you were talking about is your heart. It's heart coherence is the term that heart math call it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it is that coherence of your heart. And once you have that coherence, it knocks on and ripples out. And she was able to just calm down and then get on with her work, and the whole class just then settled down again. So you have that ability to just do something, and that's just one small activity, small but powerful, you know. So yeah, it is, yeah, being able to have access to those words and access to that part of the brain. So just stay curious, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is this response helping or hurting the relationship? It's being able to just stop and ask yourself something, label those emotions, and what help you to unlock that superpower.
Yeah.
Is it any other things, that practical advice you could give people, or anything else you want to say? Are we sort of wrapping up now? Is it time?
Yeah, I think we
Yeah,
must wrap up.
it is time.
Yeah. So what would you like to leave our listeners with?
Do you want to go first, Shireen?
Yeah, it's I think, you know, the most important think for me, I think is the idea of how do we bring what is outside in? How do we bring this all the information like emotional intelligence? How do we bring it in so that we can live it? And recognize that in that being state, we get so much more information than we would normally. But secondly, there's so much research to show that just by naming an emotion, taking time to be curious, one, that's a big key, because the moment you become curious, you actually go out of the stress state straight away. It tells the body, hey, I'm safe because now I'm curious. It's a forward movement, which is very, very different. So it's motivated forward. But also, what it does is it brings the fear in a place that we can see it. And that gives us the capacity to be able to say, I can do something about this. But when we can't see it, when it isn't tangible in a strange kind of way, like when we feel, it feels like this, once we've got that name, it becomes something that our body relates to. And it has a perceptual position to it, which means then we can do something about it. So it's just a little tool, a little trick, but it works beautifully. And this is just a little bit of science that goes on behind it, why it does that. So try it out.
Yeah.
Try it out.
Get curious, and yeah,
Get curious.
absolutely. Love it. Love it. Yes. So yeah, what I just like to leave our listeners with is a quote, a couple of quotes here. Emotional agility is not about controlling your emotions. It's about learning to dance with them. Susan
Ooh, I
David.
like
And I
that.
love dancing. So yeah, it
Yeah.
is, and there's movement. When you can dance, there's movement, isn't there?
Yeah.
So it is that
There's a
movement.
flow.
Yeah. And there's not that, you know, pulling, you're controlling it. There's a dance, there's a give, a take. It's beautiful. And then another quote is, the strength of a relationship isn't in never having conflicts, but in navigating them with grace, flexibility, and understanding. So if you're having a conflict, don't make it wrong. Don't say, oh, we shouldn't be having this. It should all be, you know, nice and happy. Be curious. Bring into being that emotional agility that has you explore it and work through it together, such that then that conflict is something you can grow from and move forward from. And if you're stuck with that and you're not sure how to do it, reach out to one of us. We can help with that. So just remember, we're here. And enjoy the adventure. Namsa, what would you like to leave our listeners with?
I love that, Carol, and the quote that you just given to our listeners. I think it's very, very beautiful. And also yesterday, just to add to your quote, I learned that release your song and harmonize your life. And I said to this person, I'm already calling myself a love harmonist. So I'm going to keep releasing my song in my heart, my life, and harmonizing my life the right way. And today as well, I've learned that emotional agility for the audience as well. I hope they've learned as well. That is prioritizing your well-being and authenticity first is really, really important. And it's not about like how well we perform in the society, because people, they always go with an agenda for people to see how well they perform. It's just maintaining that personal fulfillment, resilience, and the long-term happiness. I think that is really, really, really important. Like Shirini, you were asking me about my dance. And I just love dancing, like, and honestly, I love the rhythm. My body just goes with the rhythm of life. I don't really care what people judge or whatever they say. It doesn't matter as long I am fulfilled in my heart. So I think that is really, really important. And love without an agenda.
Yes. I think
This
we'll
is
carry that.
big.
Yes, yeah.
Could get a song out of that, you know.
Yeah.
Love without an agenda. Da, 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 da. Love without an agenda. Let's go for it. You could try it.
I'm just gonna write a song. My next dance will be
Mhm.
Love God Without an Agenda.
That would be a
Oh,
really good
yes.
one, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be a really key shift. That's a pivot shift, isn't it? To move
Yeah.
one to the other, move from asking to praising, or not just praising, but gratitude, moving from one to the other.
Yeah. That's really, really important. So guys, if you are
Yeah.
watching us from YouTube or any part of social media, please do follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, LinkedIn. We have 2 Facebook groups, Unique Billionaire Mindset and Gossip Talk Shows group. So please do join those groups so you be part of the family, and so you don't miss out as well. Because that's really, really important to see Carol Annie surprise us today with a topic that is giving us food for thoughts. And please do subscribe, share the video with other people, and go to the website as well. It's www.hseia.coach, and sign up. If you're looking for love, finding your own voice, sign up as well. God bless everyone. Live
God
with
bless.
grace. I will see you guys tomorrow. I think